firstly, I'd like to say I really appreciate the opportunity to present to all of you at Elite CISOs. And it's really great to be here. I'm sitting here in Silicon Valley. Who am I? I'm Phil Montgomery, and I'm the general manager of the Microsoft Security go-to-market. So I report to Vasu Jakal, who is the head of Microsoft Security. A little bit about my background. I've been in security my whole career, and I've been at a lot of different companies like Citrix and VMware, Blue Coat Systems. The reason why I'm at Microsoft is because there is a big problem to solve in security, and I'll talk more about that. But I first started working with Microsoft when I was at Mandiant, and I was working at Mandiant, the incident response cyber security consulting firm, and I worked very closely with Microsoft on the SolarWinds breach, which is the largest intrusion of the US government in history, and it'll take us quite a while to unwind the actual impact of that. And I worked very, very closely with Microsoft, and I realized the capabilities that Microsoft could bring to the table. So that's the first place that I wanted to start. Now, someone has their hand up on the meeting. So I don't know if I should, typically in Teams, that would mean somebody wants to say something important right now. So I'm not sure if I could keep going. Maybe we can find out who has their hand up and ask them over Messenger what the issue is.
Yeah,
so
I'll ask Phil. I know Vijay. Okay, now they have lowered the hand, so it's all good, I believe.
Yeah.
Keep
Okay.
going,
Great.
please. Yeah. Great.
Yeah. Okay. There's so many of you on the call. It's kind of hard if we use the hand raise. If you have a question or anything, if you can put it in the chat, that would be great. Yeah. And where I wanted to start is that security is shaping the world that we live in. All of you know this. We're all CISOs. We all understand the impact that it's having. And I heard a statistic from our CISO, Brett Arsenault, here at Microsoft. I heard it from him today. And he said that the amount of money that cyber criminals make worldwide now exceeds that of illegal drug trade. I mean, and that's a pretty staggering thing to think about. It's now like, one of the biggest forms of criminal activity in the world. But we know that it's more than just criminal activity. I like to start at the strategic level and really help people understand why we're in this situation. And I think there are three major factors that are contributing to this. First of all, there is a geopolitical issue, and the issue is that we do not have treaties. There are no treaties around cyber warfare because it is a form of warfare. I like to remind everybody I talk to, cybersecurity has a motivated human being at the other end trying to attack us. And just like other forms of warfare, we have treaties for conventional, chemical, nuclear, biological warfare, but we do not have treaties yet for cyber warfare. And what this means is that tens of thousands of people around the world are waking up every day to attack us without any threat of going to jail, any threat of going to prison. And that's something that Microsoft has been working with the White House. We're working with other countries. We're able to bring the resources, and our president and chief legal officer, Brad Smith, is very, very active in trying to introduce treaties, trying to introduce rules and bring order into the world. Now, I think on top of that, there are two other important factors, which is the rise of cryptocurrency. And while some of the cryptocurrencies can be tracked, others are anonymous. And so we're making it really easy for criminals to transfer large amounts of money around the world, without threat of it being intercepted. And where I say clouds, this goes back to my comment about we're all in hybrid work. I'm in my home office here in Silicon Valley. We're working remotely. It's a multi-cloud environment. Our applications are up in the cloud. The attack surface has dramatically increased. There's a lot of different things out there that attackers can leverage. And talking about the attacker, criminal activity that goes on, one of the other things that's really interesting, and this is from our threat intelligence teams, is that there's a marketplace out there where people can buy the tools that they need. They can buy zero-day attacks. They can buy exploit kits. I mean, I'm sure we've all seen them. What I love is how well organized the ransomware gangs are, where, one gang will gain the intrusion, they'll sell that to another gang that will activate the ransomware. There are ransomware as a service organizations. All of this is out there on the dark web, again, because there's no legal framework to shut it down. So some of these are really, really, really interesting figures about how much these things go for on the dark web. And of course, we know that there's lots and lots and lots of different attacks, and there's different techniques that people are using. I think one of the most important things from the Microsoft Digital Defense report that I referenced before from our threat intel teams, the thing that CISOs around the world are most concerned about, and not just CISOs, but other CIOs, is people working remotely doing things that create problems. Remote workers making poor choices. So this is a big thing, and it creates the opportunity for attackers. I believe the statistic is that 80% of attacks are due to human error, misconfiguration, poor choices. So there's obviously something that we can do there. One of the things I like to point out here is that we talk about ransomware like it's a attack technique. Of course, ransomware is a payload, and a payload could be destructive, it could be ransomware, it could exfiltrate data. There could be a lot of things that are going on. And the last thing I'll say about this is that if you look at the Microsoft blogs on the threat intelligence, a few weeks ago, we discovered that there is dormant malware on a lot of computer systems in the Ukraine. Now, we didn't draw any conclusions as to where that came from, but it was interesting that there didn't seem to be a ransomware payload there. It seemed to be a destructive payload. So thank you very much for the comment. I think these things are always really good to refresh. And again, one of the other big situations why we have these attack surfaces, why we create these problems, is we have too many security products. What was interesting to me a few years ago at the last RSA conference in San Francisco, there were so many vendors there, they had to put people in the walkways between the different conference halls. They literally couldn't fit in all the security companies. There's so much investment, there's so many startups. I'll let you read these statistics. The one that I want to dwell on, we all know there's a massive cybersecurity shortage. So the good news is we all picked the right career. The bad news is it's really hard to get good people. So the people we get, we want them focused on high value things. We want to use technology for the low value things, and we want to use our people to do the high value things. So let me come to Microsoft and let me talk about what our approach is, because it is unique in the market. So, first of all, we want to provide an end-to-end solution. We want to protect everything. We want you to be able to work with one company to protect all of your assets, including multi-cloud, including multiple operating systems. We want to simplify that complexity. We're going to simplify it in a lot of ways, but mainly by having a common infrastructure that you can leverage end to end. We're going to catch what others miss. I think you'll be surprised when you see the amount of signals, the amount of threat intelligence researchers that we have here. And that's one thing that surprised me when I joined. We invest so much in security, and we have so many resources that we just don't talk about that much. And we want to have an infrastructure that okay. So you want me to move this floating bar? I don't know how I move that. Oh, it's gone. There we go. Okay. So don't know what happened there. Thank you for the real-time feedback. And we want to have an infrastructure that lets you grow your business. You can't change your security every time something happens. Okay. So our protection is really aligned to some of the big directions in the world. And again, these are things we hear from CIOs, CISOs all over the world. I love the real-time feedback. This is a great way to do webinars. And I'm going to start over the left, and I'm sure you're all aware of all these trends. These are the top things that we hear. Obviously, we're going to start with zero trust, which I think should be called never trust. I think the first way it was termed is never trust, always verify. So don't trust access, always verify the access. We want to modernize what we have. We want to be able to defend against, current threats. secure multiple clouds. Obviously, compliance and governance is really critical these days. We're seeing a rise in government regulations as governments are trying to get in front of the cybersecurity problem. And I think that's a good thing, but it can be very, very complex. And lastly, we want to be able to investigate risk, because we know insider risk is one of the big things. So the difference with us is that all of these solutions are coming from one company. You don't have to patchwork things together from other vendors. And that's the goal of this slide, is to kind of introduce this concept of end-to-end. It's a very simple way. I like this one better, because this one talks about, we're offering and we're integrating in over 50 different categories. I'll let you read through a list of those things there, and I have some independent validation of our performance in those categories coming up. And we deliver all of these things, multi-cloud, multi-platform, end-to-end, and we largely deliver it through 6 different product families. So Microsoft Defender, we have our compliance solutions, our privacy through our Purview solutions. We have our Microsoft Endpoint Manager, Azure Active Directory for identity, and Sentinel with our SIEM solution. And as you can see on the left, multi-cloud, on the right, multiple operating system. We know that to be truly end-to-end, there are other players out there. We have to be agnostic. We have to support everything out there. I mentioned before about the capabilities. While we often focus on products, remember, any security product is only going to be as good as the threat intelligence coming into it. If you don't know what the attackers are doing, you can't detect it. And we have over 8,000 security professionals inside Microsoft. We're protecting. We announced recently over 715,000 companies in organizations in 120 different countries. And you can see there the number of signals that we get in, because we host, not just the security solutions, but we also obviously have insights of the signals across our productivity suites, and we're able to use AI. We're able to detect a lot more of what's going on. And again, something that I'm going to have us talk about more, you'll hear more about, is all of our threat researchers, all of our threat intelligence people, our incident response people. How we work closely with other companies out there. Like, as I said, when I was at Mandiant, we worked closely with Microsoft on SolarWinds. That was all publicly announced, so I can talk about that. And we continue to partner with other companies. Excuse me a minute. I'm going to take a drink of water. And we continue to partner with other companies because no one company can solve the global problem. We're doing our part to bring other companies together. In terms of benefits, I assume we're publishing the slides to you after this, and there's a whole bunch of links in here which will enable you to drill into some of our key benefits. There's a lot of information available, but having an end-to-end security solution, it's going to let you reduce cost. It's going to reduce risk. I talked about we have integrated zero trust across the whole platform. We're going to detect more threats with an integrated XDR and SIEM story. We're big supporters of that. And we have those 8,000 threat researchers that are able to feed that information into the products to find what's out there. Because remember what I said before, you want to have fewer false positives, and then you want to be able to connect together all the signals, apply threat intel. You want to be able to find things early that you need to find. Now, I've talked a lot about suites and end-to-end. People always say, are you a best of suite or are you a best of breed company? And the answer is we're both. So we are a leader in, I went forward one. So we're a leader in 5 Gartner Magic Quadrants. It's interesting, it goes forward automatically. So 5 Gartner Magic Quadrant reports. These are the reports. So leader in 5 of them. We're a leader in 8 Forrester Waves, and we're a leader in a number of IDC reports as well. So we have independent validation of our leadership in all these different markets. So the answer is that we are best of suite, but we're also best of breed. And we're investing, we're not sitting still. We're investing in where security is going. When we look at our world, we overlay the trends. In the past 5 years, we invested 5 billion. Now, we announced last year that we'll invest 20 billion in the next 5 years in cybersecurity. I mean, that shows our commitment to cybersecurity. I'll let you read through, some of the areas that we've been investing in. Excuse me, but that 20 billion is what we're investing in R&D. Okay, so just in engineers, in threat researchers, in all of that, we are serious about cybersecurity, and it is a mission to us. Almost at the end, we're not standing still. We acquired 3 companies recently, CloudKnox, RiskIQ, and Refirm Labs. And Refirm has turned into our IoT solution, the Internet of Things. It's one of my 5 favorite products, in that I'm a microelectronics person, been involved in that my whole life. So it's great to see us securing all the devices, as well as the IT, the clouds, and devices out there. I'm super excited about that. So what I'm going to do now, I've given you the top level overview, and I'm going to hand it over to Iftikhar, and he's going to take a deeper dive into some of our technology. And I'm going to stop sharing, and then I'm going to come back and join you at the end.
Thanks, Phil, and good morning, everyone. And thanks so much for joining this morning. Let me go ahead and share my screen, and then we can quickly get started. Okay, I'm sharing my screen. Let me know when you all can see it. Okay, perfect. So let me quickly get started with first of all, taking you through our threat protection or security operations reference architecture. And you can see here from the capabilities and the product portfolio that Microsoft has, it basically is end-to-end, starting from protecting your infrastructure and application, your PaaS services, whether they are running on Azure or third-party clouds, your IT and not just your IT environment, but also your OT and IoT environments as well. And we're going to take a deep look into what we are doing here. In addition to that, identity and access management, endpoint and mobile devices, modern SaaS applications, including Office 365 and third-party SaaS applications like Google, Salesforce, Box, and so on. And of course, the information governance. And these are the various solutions which basically ties all these areas together and gives you an end-to-end view of what's happening in all these different attack vectors, and then help you correlate various threats and events to make a sense of if you are in the middle of multi-stage attacks. A lot of these attacks are not isolated anymore. They usually have patterns to it. They usually have precedents and things that may have happened after a particular incident and or event as well. A lot of times we lose that valuable correlations if we are not closely watching, and if you're not closely correlating this with things that may have happened in the past or things which are progressing right now. And that kind of becomes a blind spot for a lot of us. If we have to detect some of these multi-stage attacks, it is very important that we invest in the right tools and, of course, right folks and right people in our organizations who have that ability, first of all, to get help from the tools itself to be able to correlate things which may have happened in the past and things which are happening now at different point of a digital state, and also our threat hunters who are able to make sense of it and then detect some of these threats and incident much earlier in the life cycle, so that we can confine them before it can become a major impactful event in our organization. So now let me show you, while I'm not going to go deep into the slide itself, but let me show you how we make all of these real and not just a slideshow, for example. Let me end the slideshow, and you'll get the slide as well for your further reference. Now, so I'm right now on this home page of our Microsoft 360R XDR solution, which is a single portal called security.microsoft.com, which allows you to bring various insights of threats and incidents happening at multiple places, like your endpoints, things that is happening on your email and collaboration layer like Office 365, your cloud applications, and your identity. Now, this gives you a great view of your secure score in terms of what type of controls that you have set up in each of these areas, and if there are any possibilities of improvement in terms of your posture management or security posture. which may be making things easier for an attacker to attack you, and you may become a lucrative target if some of these things are not intact in the first place. A lot of us, while we are constantly struggling to work on incidents and alert, there are a lot of things that we can basically do proactively to make sure that we are preventing certain things from happening in the first place. And that all boils down to what are different controls and configurations that you may have in place, which may make you not a lucrative candidate for attack. You get all those visibilities right here itself. It gives you a view of like how many of your users who are probably at risk at this time, and you may want to focus your energies in terms of investigations, assessment, and of these users to make sure that these users, if any of your executives or if your CXOs are falling as part of these users who are at risk, you may want to dive deep into this and make sure that you contain them before it can become a huge problem for you. And of course, most of other incidents and the number of devices that has discovered and so on. Now, obviously, we will not have time to go through the entire console today, but I'm going to talk about like how a multi-stage attack would look like. Now, what this console is really doing, it's basically gathering various incidents and alerts from various Microsoft solutions, like our EDR solutions, which are running at endpoints, our next-gen antivirus, which is Microsoft Defender, Defender for Office, which is protecting your emails and your collaboration suite, and of course your Microsoft Defender for Identity, which is the identity threat protection, and Microsoft Cloud Application Security. So you can see here that there are a lot of alerts which are coming, which are coming from antivirus. Some of them are coming from Office 365, some of them may be coming from your MCAS and so on. Now, obviously, this is like an endless list of alerts. It is very, very difficult for an organization and SOC analyst to work on each and every alert in isolation without having a context around it. And that is where we recommend organizations to look at these incidents. Now, what we really do here, we basically correlate all these alerts and events happening at multiple places and then bring into a single incident. Now you can see here that all these hundreds of alerts basically got correlated, and now we only have these 4 incidents to work on. Now your your security analysts can focus their energies on some of these multi-stage attacks instead of finding their way with individual alerts, which might be false positive to begin with. Now, I'll show you one of these alerts here. Now, you can see here that while these are showing all multi-stage attacks, which means that there are events and activities which may be happening at multiple parts of your digital estate. And if you are running multiple consoles and there are different individuals who are looking at different consoles and not even speaking to each other, there's a huge possibility that you will miss out on a multi-stage attack like these. Now, I'll take you to one of these alerts, one of these incidents here, which is this one. And this says that it's a multi-stage incident involving initial access and lateral movements on multiple endpoints by multiple sources. Now, when I take you to the summary of this incident, it basically shows you the entire sequence of event, how it happened, and where they are in the MITRE kill chain. Now, we all know when an attack is more on the right side of the MITRE kill chain, which means that they are close to making an impact or data exfiltration or put a ransomware or cause disruption. The more the attack phases are on the left-hand side, it's still easier to confine, and before they could cause a major impact. Now, depending upon the alerts and incidents that we have seen, we map them on the MITRE attack kill chain so that it can be prioritized accordingly from your analyst perspective, that they are the attack has already progressed towards the lateral movements, which means they're still very close to replicate themselves in much larger environment, and then close to making an impact. And then you get to see the entire sequence of event, how it has happened on a time series. Like a user actually clicked on a malicious URL that came in an email. However, Office 365 detected that and started deleting all the emails that came on the mailbox. However, we saw that one user actually clicked on the URL before it got deleted by the system. After the URL got clicked, there was a process injection that happened on their machines. Their machine got compromised, and then their machine was basically used to steal credentials and so on. Now, so you can see the entire attack story, and you can narrate the entire attack story, here itself. If I take you to the alerts here, this particular incident itself consists of 22 different alerts. Now, think of a scenario if you have 22 different alerts at different times, and some of these even spread across multiple days. Your analyst may have worked on few alerts yesterday. Now there's a new analyst in the next day in a different shift, maybe working on a different alert. Now they're not talking to each other because they're probably working on different shifts. Some of them are more focused on endpoints, some of them are more focused on identity, and so on. Now, when there's a collaboration problem, with multiple engineers or SOC analysts working, on these incidents, that is where the tools comes into the picture. If you have tools like these, which allows you to do correlations by itself and bring it up for your analysts' consideration, it makes things even easier, because it is difficult for all the analysts to collaborate on every incident and every alert to begin with. So you can see here that there are multiple alerts here, and these alerts have come from multiple places. Some alerts have come from Office 365, some alerts have come from endpoints, some alerts even have come from cloud applications, and so on. So you can see how many devices are involved here. There's an ADFS server, which means that there's a critical server because it controls your authentications as well. These are the users who are impacted, which means that their credentials have been compromised. You know what their titles are. Apparently, there's a CIO in here as well, a lucrative target, I must say, and your ADFS admin. So yeah, a critical environment, a critical proposition here. Then, of course, which mailbox was compromised which was caused to do initial compromise. Now, what really happens here, that instead of you doing all these investigations manually, because it will take a lot of things to do further correlations, like how many machines are involved here and what exactly running on those machines, what IP addresses were being used, and so on. It sometimes takes hours, and you will lose time when you need to do these investigations because your attackers are moving at much faster pace than you are defending, and that requires a lot of work to make sure that you understand the scope and the blast radius of this attack, and then confine things much quicker. And that is where this automatic investigation comes into picture. It automatically investigate and then bring out malicious artifacts in terms of files, in terms of emails, in terms of URLs, IP address, and so on, and automatically start remediating it by itself without any manual intervention. Now you can see which are those processes and IP addresses, and all those entities are involved, and then it also starts taking care of them for you. Now, your precious human intelligence or your human resources are more focused to basically overwatch this whole investigations, and then make sure that remediations are happening at par and quickly, and making sure that your systems are available for those remediations without actually having to do most of the trivial tasks by themselves. Now you can actually see the entire attack story. Now, if I run, when you see these are the various alerts that has come, I can actually play the entire attack story, and you can see the sequence of events that has happened. Now you can see here, these are two different separate events are happening. This is one event, and this is another event. They are not correlated. They just got correlated now. So if you can see here that if some of these things are happening at two different places in different times, and they may be getting investigated individually without having a much uber view of the environment, you may lose out on a multi-stage attack. You can see this is now an independent event. However, now it got correlated because there was the same user involved, and so on. So all I'm saying that it basically gives you a view of the entire infrastructure, email, endpoints, identity, and cloud applications, to see if there are any anomalies which are happening, and make sure that you're not part of any multi-stage attacks. Now, this is on the Microsoft 365 side of things, which are basically in the IT side of things, apparently. However, we also now have capabilities on the OT side of things as well. So if you are one of those organizations who have invested a lot in IoT systems and OT systems, and sometimes these OT systems, not sometimes, most of the times these OT systems are completely air-gapped, and you would like to make sure that your OT systems are not compromised and it is not causing any safety issues and health issues or disruptions of operations for your organization. And that is where the Defender for IoT solution allows you to detect threats purely in a passive form within your OT environment. This is a completely offline sensor. It sits in your organization, in your OT environments, and detect threats which are present in your OT environment, like, for example, presence of malicious activities like black energy. And we all know what happened with black energy in Ukraine, which basically took down the entire power grid of the entire country. So you can see your threats, not just on the IT system side of things, but also OT system side of things as well. You can do your inventory of various OT systems, and you can be rest assured that if there are any changes are being made on these OT systems, you are the first to know. For example, you may have an IP address assigned to an IP camera, and let's say that IP camera is no longer there anymore, and this IP camera is now being replaced with a Raspberry Pi device. And we all know what Raspberry Pi devices are capable of. They are a mini computer which can basically which can be used as an attack platform and can compromise various systems within your environment itself. So things like that. Also, from the operations perspective, if you have OT systems and their configurations are being manipulated or changed, like a threshold value of a particular temperature has been increased, which could cause potential safety issues in the environment and so on. You can measure some of those things as well with the help of this Defender for IoT systems as well. And of course, the same things in terms of events. I'm sorry, my internet is a bit slow here. Sorry. So you can measure the sequence of events. If there are any attacks which are happening in the organization, you can now relate this not in the OT environment, but what's happening in the IT environment. And that all comes down to our SIEM solution, which is Azure Sentinel. So Azure Sentinel basically expands your XDR capabilities from your IT environments, which are being managed by M365 Defender, like email, identity, endpoints, and your cloud applications, and then things which are happening in your OT environment. Now you can basically extend that to the digital estate, which is not being managed by Microsoft. Like, for example, your cloud proxy, your firewalls, your routers, your switches, your third-party cloud applications like AWS, your GCPs, and so on. So you can see here that right now I'm on Azure Sentinel console. And in Azure Sentinel console, I'm having various alerts or incidents being aggregated from various Microsoft systems, which is one from Microsoft 365 Defender. Sentinel is doing a lot of its own threat detection based on the machine learning it has built in, and of course, the use cases that your analyst team or your SOC team has written. And then, detections are also coming from Defender for IoT and so on as well. Now, Sentinel allows you to to basically extend this correlation to even larger digital estates. So you can take a high fidelity event from Microsoft 365 Defender that there's a multi-stage attacks happening, and then you can correlate this event with your network firewalls or your IDS IPS system, or maybe your WAF system, which is running on AWS, for example. And you can correlate that the IP address, which is being used to do a threat incident within your on-premises environment, is also doing the same thing on your, also showing up on your WAF on AWS systems. So you can do that level of correlations from here itself. Now let's take one example here. Let's say this is one of the alert that we are seeing here, which is coming from M365 Defender. Actually, let me take something which has come from Sentinel. So Sentinel basically has more than 200 use cases which are built in. So it gives you an immediate value when you spin it up on your Azure environment, which allows you to bring your data from Microsoft assets as well as non-Microsoft sources like your public cloud, which is like cloud to cloud, ingestion of logs, and also from your on-premises systems like your firewall appliances, your Windows Server, your Linux host, which are running on-premises. Once the logs are here, you can basically use these use cases. And these use cases are built in, which you can activate, and you can see there are almost 300 use cases which are already here, which are running active, but they are even more than that, which are here, which we have not enabled here in this environment. Once they're activated, they constantly run against the log sources to detect anomalies, and not just the Microsoft log sources, but third-party log sources as well. And if you see our data connector list, this is huge. There are already 125 data connectors, but we are working even more. And most of the third-party off-shelf appliances and services that you're currently using, they're all here. If they're not here, we can always create a custom connector to connect to those services and bring their insights and their logs into Sentinel. Once we have those logs here, one thing I forgot to mention, that unlike typical SIM solutions where you actually have to write a lot of use cases yourself, Sentinel works a lot on the machine learning models, where we have written various machine learning models here which can detect certain threats on its own without writing any static rules. For example, if I show some of the rule types here, uncheck all of them and show you the machine learning based and anomaly based, you can see these are the various anomaly based use cases or threat detection which does not require you to write any use cases. It can automatically detect like excessive data transfer anomaly, domain reputation coming from Palo Alto and so on, attempted user brute force. This will not require you to write use cases in a typical SIM scenario. These are all going to be detected purely by the machine learning itself. And once they're detected, you will see an incident, which is again a high fidelity incident based on various parameters, also insights coming from other Microsoft solutions if you have in place. And then when you start investigating, you see a much larger picture beyond just Microsoft assets or the systems which are being managed and monitored by Microsoft. So if since let's say if I open this particular alert here or incident here, and in this incident I have an IP address involved, and there's a host name which is running on cloud is involved, and this is basically a suspicious outbound network connectivity from this particular host. Now, if I hover my mouse on this IP address, this will basically does a lot of cross detection for me, and you can see that it has automatically started measuring this IP address at various places, like most prevalent account associated with this IP address. If there are users who are logging on from this IP addresses, you will see it right here itself. You don't have to copy the URL and go to your sign-in logs again and check if there are any users who are logging in from this IP address. Apparently, everything will come down here. If there are any office activity happening, if there's any high download or high uploads happening, if there are brute force things happening from these IP addresses and so on. So you get to see everything in here. Now, most of these things are grayed out here because it's a lab environment. We could not simulate everything, but at least we have a lot of little alerts. So if you want to see if these IPs have shown in the previous alerts as well, I can simply click on this and I can see that there are even more alerts which may have happened in the past 2 days back, 2 months back, or even a year back. They will all show up over here that this is not a new IP address in the environment. There is a precedence of this IP address doing random things and anomalous things in your organization. So you may want to block it by putting it in your threat intelligence and so on. Similarly, you can do further investigations and these things from here. Now, and not just investigation, but you can also do remediation. The Sentinel is a full-fledged SOAR platform which allows you to even do remediations. Remediations like blocking an IP address in your firewalls. So you can take an example that you found a threat coming from a Microsoft 365. It involves a user. It involves a IP address. You can use playbooks like this. And this playbook, what this playbook really does, it basically grabs these entities like usernames, IP addresses, and then based on your configuration, it can block an IP address in Palo Alto. It can block an IP address in your firewalls of choice like Cisco or Fortinet and some of those things. And it can also connect to Azure Active Directory or Active Directory and even block the user from going any further. If you know that this particular user is compromised, you can basically create this workflow and it will automatically execute. So this is the flow of this automation. So when an attack is initiated, it will open a particular in ServiceNow. Let's say you are using a ServiceNow for incident response. It will post a message on the Teams channel. It will send an approval email to maybe a SOC head or a team lead for that shift. And with the two options like block user and IP and ignore, if they click on block user and IP, then it's simply connect to Azure Active Directory and disable the account. So it basically changes the account enabled from no to yes, and then connect to, let's say, Palo Alto, and then put this IP address in their block list. So you can see how it can automate the entire security operation. So it's not just the automation of the remediation, but automation of the notification system, incident creation, and also approval system. So you can completely reduce the overhead on your SOC analyst to do some trivial tasks and focus more on high value and high critical investigations and remediations. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it that I wanted to talk about and give you a glimpse of how we are making all those things real in terms of giving you an end-to-end view of your threats, detecting multi-stage attacks, which could be spread across multiple places in your digital estate, having them correlated with what's happening in your OT environments, if you have any, and then bringing it all together and then extending it to a non-Microsoft assets as well, which could be AWS, GCPs, Oracle Cloud, and your non-Microsoft assets on premises like personal firewalls, IDS, IPS systems, and so on. So I hope that gives you some insights of how this whole thing comes together and helps you protect your organization in a much better way. But we can have a deeper conversation on this later on as well. And I'll hand it over back to Phil to for closing remarks and then conclusion. Phil, over to you.
Hey, thank you so much. Super appreciate that, Iftikhar. And I'm going to give you my summary of that amazing demo. And it goes back to what I said. There's a worldwide shortage of security professionals. So we want to automate what we can. And so, Sentinel is it's a cloud native, scalable, security information and event management system, or SIEM, as we call it here. And it's a SOAR platform. So security, orchestration, automation, and response. And what we're going to be doing with this is we're collecting data at cloud scale. And I love that Iftikhar showed us all the connectors to all the third-party products. Yes, you can pull in, remember, you're pulling in alerts, you're pulling in logs, you're pulling in all sorts of telemetry, yes, from IoT devices, from Linux, from Macs, Windows, you name it, we can ingest it in here. That's what a SIEM does. And then we're going to apply that threat intelligence. And as I said, we have 8,000 professionals looking at all of this. We have outstanding threat intel. We're going to be looking for the patterns where we don't want, we want to reduce the false positives. We want to correlate weak signals. When we do find something, we want to have the tools to do an investigation. And lastly, I love how, Iftikhar, you showed all the automation in there. We want to automate so we don't have people wasting their times on common tasks. I mean, using the automation is really critical. So, a SIEM is really the workbench of security these days. And it's a super important platform to us. It is where end-to-end, where everything is really coming together, is within a SIEM. So I super appreciate everybody's time. I've really enjoyed it. And I just wanted to end on a couple of things that are really worth looking at. And on the right-hand side of this slide here, you can see that there's 2 reports. I don't know why this bar is up here again. So maybe I can, oh, there it goes away. Whoop. And now I went too far. So let me go back. So there's 2 documents that I've referenced here. There's one from our security operations team, and it's best practices and lessons learned from our SOC. So these are from Brett Arsenault's team. This is how we run our business ourselves. We work very closely with our SOC and make sure that their lessons are incorporated in everything that we do. And I think just to go through those things there, I think we've talked about most of these. You have to embrace zero trust. And I like to think about it. Never trust, always verify. Verify every piece of access. High privileged accounts, obviously your admin accounts, we need to be very, very careful with those. We need to keep them segmented. Do you trust your supply chain? This is really, really important. You might trust everything that you do. Do you trust the supply chain of all of your suppliers, or are you creating unknown problems there? I think that's a big issue where we're all looking, especially after SolarWinds. Penetration testing, I always say red teaming, blue teaming, purple teaming is absolutely critical. There are people attacking our networks. Bring in some good people to try to attack you. And if they find faults, that's good. They found it before a bad attacker did. So fix them and then keep going. Keep on doing regular red teaming, blue teaming, purple teaming, absolutely essential. Make sure you have the comprehensive investigation capabilities. We've talked a lot about threat intelligence. Iftikhar showed some of the investigation tools that we have. And lastly, integrate all of your security operation tools together. I think the rise of SecOps, security operations, is really critical. So, I could talk for a lot longer. You can probably tell I like to talk. The thing I'm going to leave you with is the blue box here. there are two really critical security reports that I read. I always read the Microsoft Digital Defense Report every year, and I read the Mandiant M-Trends report. Those are the two reports that I always have like on my desktop. I'm always looking at and understanding what's going on. So thank you very, very much for your time, and I'll hand back to Vikas for the closing.
Awesome. Thanks, Phil and Iftikhar. Great session. One comment, guys, don't put your PII or email address on chat. I'm not sure what Abbas is going to offer, but people are putting their email IDs on the chat, so don't do it, guys. Okay, I think we can. It's bang on time, 11:50. So really appreciate you managing within time. Let's ask some Q&A. We have more than 300 people right now, I believe, on this session. So if you want to ask question, raise your hand. I will unmute you and then you can ask your question. I see Mr. Manoj has raised hand. Manoj, go ahead, ask your question, please. Okay, I'm going to unmute more. Gunjan, you can ask your question now. Allow mic, allow video. Go ahead, Gunjan, please.
Yes. Thank you. Thanks, Vikas. So my question, I did, put it on the chat as well, but I'm going to read it out. Let's say we have a SIM from a different vendor, and let's say we go for Microsoft Defender. Does the dashboard that you showed on the screen, does it still help us, or will it give us the dashboard that you showed? Because we are primarily Microsoft shop, and we want to make best use of the features that you mentioned.
Sure. Yeah, Gunjan, yeah, bang on. So yeah, absolutely. So that if you're using Defender, or if you're planning to use Defender and Defender for endpoint, you will have a console. So the console is the same that I showed you, depending upon what you own. So for example, if you have a Defender for endpoint along with Defender for Office and Defender for Identity and so on, it will bring all these data together. If you only have, let's say you start your journey with Defender for endpoint to begin with, then you will have only the endpoint detections coming to the same console, and you can do further investigations there in the same console itself. And you can take these incidents to your SIM platform. Even if you're using third-party SIM, you can, all these data can go to third-party SIM as well for further correlations with things might be happening, on your firewalls and so on. But yes, you will get access to the console of Defender for endpoint at least.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ritika.
Awesome. Next, I see Rohit. Go ahead, ask your question. Rohit Vishwakarma, my very good friend from Perfective and Mille.
Thank you, Vikas. Thanks for the opportunity and great session so far. My quick question is on Microsoft Secure Score. It felt like an interesting KPI to track, but the question is this score based on the current configuration compared with the best practices, or does it take a holistic view into consideration wherein it looks at configuration, vulnerabilities, exposure, and exploits all together?
So that is correct, Rohit. Yes, so it takes, of course, the configurations against the best practices, against the major frameworks like NIST, CIS, and so on, and some of the exploitations which we are seeing currently in the wild. So, for example, if people are exploiting a particular configuration on, let's say, on your Office 365, we'll put that as part of your secure score, and you will have opportunity to optimize that and then keep your score moving at a higher level month on month, so that you will also have a measurable impact to demonstrate within the organization that you're moving from you're increasing your security posture day on day and month on month as well. So you're right in terms of how we gather the security score, and each and every component and control has a score associated with that. Like, for example, MFA has probably the highest number of scores. So if you just turn on the MFA, you boost up your score by 30%. And we still have a lot of organizations who have not turned on MFA, surprisingly. So first thing first, turn on MFA. You can do rest of the things later on, but turn on MFA. It's the first thing. So yeah, you're right.
Great. Thank you.
Perfect. Munesh, go ahead. Ask your question now.
Yeah. Hi. Thank you, everyone, for this great session. My question is, today Microsoft is perceived as more of a productivity company and a cloud company. This new security dimension that Microsoft is adding, while I saw those, Forrester reports and the Gartner quadrants, what else is Microsoft doing to bring in that confidence in the CISO community that it's now a security company as well?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I'm glad I finally have a question to answer. So thank you for asking it. I think we've been a security for a long time. We just haven't talked about a lot of what we're doing. And I think firstly, we've brought in a lot of new leaders into security. So Vasu Jakal, who is my boss, was the CMO at Mandiant. And so, and she's brought a bunch of new people in as well. And our focus has been to help the CISO community understand what we're doing for security. I think there's also been a lot of work done with governments around the world, especially with the US government, as I said, with our president, Brad Smith, a lot of good work going on. I would be open to hearing from you about what other things that we could do. We are looking at what should we do about our own standalone security event, for example. We are recently launched a campaign. I don't know if anybody's seen it. It's Be Fearless. We launched a security campaign. So we're spending more effort, trying to connect with people just like yourselves, with this community. So I think I'd put it back on you and say, what more would you like to see from us to help your stakeholders know that Microsoft is a security company and is, you could argue, the world's biggest security company?
Sure, we'll route it through Vikas, in terms of those questions.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
More work for Vikas.
Great. Next question is from Mayur. Mayur, go ahead, ask your question, please. You gotta be fast. Okay, next move to Satyendra-ji. Satyendra-ji, please unmute yourself, ask your question. We have 4 more minutes to go. Okay, Mr. Amit Bhatia, please go ahead, ask your question.
Because am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. Thank you. Thanks for the wonderful session on the Microsoft and giving us the snippets about how Microsoft is evolving in the security domain. My question is a little generic, but I actually expect a specific answer on this. The reason is most of the organization like us, they are on the digital transformation journey and they are moving on the cloud. And Microsoft Azure plays a very pivotal role within that digital transformation journey across the world. So what's your advice to the CISO? Your presentation says, Microsoft today is a security company. Everything is available on the Microsoft cloud on the security perspective. What's your key advice to the CISO so that we can inculcate those Microsoft security practices within the cloud?
That's a really good question, and I think there's so many different dimensions the way I could answer that, and I think the first way I would answer it, I mean, you asked for the key advice to the CISOs. I mean, it's just learning about our solutions, learning what we do, learning what we can deliver. And I think that deep understanding of the attacker is the most critical thing that that we all need to have is that landscape out there. And then looking at your organization and taking our best practices, taking what we learned and then seeing how that you can apply them. I mean, every organization is unique and we have a lot of solutions across different size organizations, from the largest down to SMB, down to consumer. So I'm not sure if I answered it or not, but I think working with us to help us understand your needs, and then we can help you understand what we can do to help you.
My question on the specific perspective, what I want is, how does I as a CISO start using Microsoft's cybersecurity practices on the cloud? What should be the first approach to inculcate your Microsoft cybersecurity practices? A little specific on that.
Can I make a comment there, Phil, if I may?
Yes, please do.
Okay. So I'll probably start with, first comment is, and you probably can validate this, that Azure is the only cloud which is built by a security company. If you see, the combination of other cloud service providers and their work in the security field, you will probably see them mutually exclusive. So Microsoft with Azure and Microsoft as a security company, they are, we are working together. Yeah. So so Azure is the only cloud which is built by a security company. Now, to answer your question, how you can begin, the first thing first that you should do is enable something called Azure Security Center, which is like the free thing that you can add. And when you enable Azure Security Center, you basically get to see your posture of your cloud. There is no cost to it. You simply enable it and you get to see where you are lacking in terms of you may have done some unintended configurations. Your threat vectors which are there on premises when you take it to the cloud remains if you have not configured them properly. So first thing first, I would suggest that enable Security Center so that you get to see what are your threat vectors are, what are your vulnerabilities that you're currently living with, whether you know them about those vulnerabilities or not. Get started from there, and then based on your priorities, based on your tolerance level of various applications and services that you're currently running and how critical they are for you, you can start enabling more and more capabilities on Azure, like Azure Defender, Defender for DNS, Defender for storage, Defender for Kubernetes, and so on. So first thing first would be to enable Azure Security Center. If that helps.
I think there could be an entire session just on this topic itself, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we are running out of time. We cannot take more questions. Maybe Tom, you can note down the questions and later on we can respond to those. Okay, guys, last thing, what we are waiting for before we get to the Wheel of Fortune. So if you want to download your participation certificate that looks like it, what you can do is go to EliteCISOs website, click on events, click on upcoming events. Click on CPA certificate. This will take you to a Google form. Put your email address, put your full name, and the password to download certificate is Microsoft. Very easy to guess, right? Put Microsoft and you will get your certificate over your email. Now, once you are here, you might want to register for next week's session. As I said, we conduct these sessions every week on Thursday, 11 o'clock India time. So we are starting a series of sessions around cybersecurity to cyber resilience. That's what the theme is going to be. And the partner is going to be Micro Focus this time. So go ahead, run it. And then we will have an exciting quiz and exciting LinkedIn contest as part of Micro Focus session. And the giveaway would be Apple AirPods, my favorite. So go ahead, guys, register for it. And then if you are here, I would also like to bring your attention towards the membership. So we run, separate chapters and various chapters across India, and international chapter is also there. So if you are CIO or CISO, and if you are not in EliteCISOs WhatsApp group, if you are not in EliteCISOs chapter, maybe this could be a good opportunity where you can register yourself. So if you want to be in the WhatsApp groups where we share a lot of information and a lot of collaboration happens over there, so you can go to EliteCISOs website, click on membership and fill this form. We will add you on the or in the WhatsApp group for a specific city where you belong to, right? And this is only for corporate CISOs and CIOs, guys. So if you are not CIO or CISO, please do not submit the form. Even if you submit, we will verify. And if you find that you are not corporate CIO CISO, we will not add you into the chapter or in the group. Okay, last thing that everybody is waiting for is the Wheel of Fortune. So while we open registration, we said we will put only first 100 people to register in the Wheel of Fortune. But I got a lot of DMs saying, no, everybody should be included. So guys, everybody is here. OK, we got 374 registration and I think we had about 300 plus joining today. So that's amazing. I'm going to spin it and we have 4 smartwatches as a giveaway. OK, if I'll spin it once, if your name comes, great. If your name does not come, if your name comes and you are not there, we will move to the second one. OK, I cannot keep spinning it because we have 4 giveaways. So if people are not there, we will not wait for it. We will move to the second one. OK, guys, if your name comes, go to the chat and say yes that you are in this session. Iftikhar, can you watch chat for me, please, if possible? See who says yes. OK, I'm going to run it now. Good luck, guys. OK, the first winner. What is smartwatch is, and the name is going to appear on your screen now. So the first one it is picking is Tejas Shah. Mr. Tejas is a member from Mumbai. Mr. Tejas, if you are there, go to the chat and say yes, you are here. Is there anybody now? Iftikhar, did anybody say yes? No?
No
Okay,
change?
guys, I'm moving to the next one now. So this is the first one is gone. This is the second one, and you got to be fast. Okay, for the second one, we are spinning it now, and the winner name is going to appear on your screen in a moment. Great, great, great. The name is Pooja Bansal. Awesome. Pooja from Delhi chapter. One of my good friend, fitness enthusiast. She's almost there in all the sessions. I'm not sure if it is her hard luck today. Let's see. No?
She's here.
She's here. Awesome. Congratulations, Pooja. Great. The second one is gone. We are spinning for the third one now. I'm rushing because it's already 12:05. And for the micro focus, the first 100 will be part of the Wheel of Fortune. Okay, guys, so go ahead and register for that. Let's see. The third one goes to Vivek Daharia from Mumbai. Mr. Vivek is CIO for KNP Securities. He's a member of Mumbai chapter. Let's see if Mr. Vivek is there. Iftikhar, can you confirm?
I mean, I see a yes, but I don't know
Nothing
if that
yet
is Vivek.
Who said
Yes,
Vivek?
yes.
We'll go through the chat. Okay, but there are multiple Viveks in the session that I know of. But we'll go through the chat and check. Okay, I'm going for the last one now, which is the fourth smartwatch giveaway. Let's see. Okay, the fourth one is going to be. Okay, Mr. Uday. Mr. Uday, again, member of Mumbai chapter. Mr. Uday, if you are there, go to the chat window and say yes. Anything, Iftikhar, on the chat? No?
Yeah, I think we have you there here. Yep.
You have Uday? Okay, awesome, great. Congratulations, Uday ji. Send me a WhatsApp with your address and we will deliver it to you. I think that's about it. We ran 6 minutes late. Apologies for that. But again, thanks everyone for attending the session. We had 300 plus attendees today. That shows the trust in Microsoft and the speaker like Phil and Iftikhar. Amazing session overall, guys. See you guys next week on Thursday, 11 o'clock. Bye for now. Bye-bye.
Thanks
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.
Thank you.